Hello.
Hello. Hello from KubeCon. This is our slightly delayed open office hours. There's a bit of a delay, actually. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. Okay. Welcome, everybody. So we've there's a bunch of us over in KubeCon. We have been here for you probably want to. Oh, brilliant. We are talking about Jenkins X. We've had a fantastic week. There's been a huge amount of excitement around Jenkins X. Carlos did a fantastic talk. I think there was around, how many? About 900 people for,
Yeah,
for
900,
yeah, 900 people for Carlos's talk. It has been pretty huge. We're very, very excited. We're going to have a little write-up as well when we come back and kind of show a bit more of the details. Liam's just showing some of the conference there. For anybody that hasn't been to a KubeCon, it's an hugely exciting. The energy here is just immense, positive. It's very, it's all around a fantastic conference. So yeah, we'll do a bit more of an update on that and maybe do a blog on the Jenkins X website when we're back next week. But yeah, so far everything has been positive. There's a lot of excitement for Jenkins X, and so we're obviously very excited too. Is there any other highlights? James, can you talk or anything? Oh, right. James is struggling with his headphones. Rob, what's been a highlight for you in KubeCon?
I think actually the highlight for me has really been Carlos's talk, obviously about Jenkins X, so that's really, really good. I mean, it's just the general buzz. There's a real excitement around here, and people are really infused and excited about Kubernetes in general. I mean, about Jenkins X delivery. It's great. And actually, we've come across a number of projects which we think are going to work really well with Jenkins X and accelerate the growth around that. So it's good. Really enjoying it.
Yeah, actually, so there was caught up with some of the Bitnami folks actually yesterday, and they come up with they've actually now got this like an app or something. It's like a distribution of Prometheus and Grafana, a number of metrics out of the box, and actually they're going to distribute in a nice, easy way to consume. So that seems like a perfect win that we can try and add in as soon as possible. What was that chap, James? Was it Shipper? Is it Shipper?
It was Shipper, and it was from booking.com. Let me just find the link. This looks very cool.
Yeah. So this chap came over, really lovely chap, came over and started talking about what they've been doing around canarying. And there's a link that James is going to find. We think it's called Shipper, and it looks like a great fit for Jenkins X. So it's kind of in as soon as possible. Yeah, Rob's just popped it in the Hangout link, and we can add it to the Google Doc afterwards as well. But yeah, maybe if anybody's interested in what we're going to be hopefully doing around canarying deployments as well, then have a look at that link. We should be, yeah, hopefully in the new year, get that in as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, Shipper looks very cool.
What's been your highlight, James?
I think the general buzz about, well, Kubernetes, Jenkins X, CI/CD. Lots of people have asked about serverless Jenkins, which there's been a lot of people who they're maybe not ready to go full on CI/CD with Kubernetes, but they are using lots of Jenkins, and lots of people have been very excited about moving to serverless Jenkins, so you don't have any Jenkins masters to manage anymore, which is awesome. There's been lots of excitement about that, but I think preview environments keep blowing people's minds when you kind of you can see the light bulbs go off in people's heads when they realize how awesome preview environments are. But no, it's just been awesome. Lots and lots of chats about lots and lots of things.
Probably the most common question that I've had, which has actually surprised me actually, is how do we build our Docker images? And I've kind of had to a little bit every single time. At the moment, we're mounting the Docker socket. Gareth's been looking at some Canico and Google Container Builder. So basically, I've been telling everybody, and it's going to be sorted as soon as possible. But I don't know if that leads into Gareth.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, you cut out there at the end, James. But yeah, it's definitely it's very, very high on my priority list, and I'm very, very close to having it all working. It works. I've got Google Container Builder building images really nicely, pushing them into GCR. And doing that, I'm just trying to work out at the moment how to integrate it into Jenkins X so we can sort of enable it as a flag when you create a cluster on GKE. But very, very close.
That'd be awesome. GCR support by default on Google Cloud would be great as well.
Well, yeah, it seems to do that, and natively, as soon as you enable the cloud builder, it just pushes to GCR.
Awesome.
So it's really cool, and it's super fast. It's so much faster than building on our own images. I think the serverless builds, I think they create that mono repo, or each of the mono repos creates about 10 builds of about 2 gig each. So you can see why we run out of disk space pretty quickly.
That's very cool.
So good. So we can actually continue telling people that that's almost sorted. I was chatting to Dan actually from, I think was he managing the Kaneko project, I think, and he's saying that they've been adding loads of caches that they're really quite shocked at how fast these builds are actually going. So that's really exciting stuff as well. You're taking advantage of. Well, I'm breaking up. Okay, I'll just keep.
I think I might have lost connection too.
We can hear you, James. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Flaky Wi-Fi at the conference. Who'd have thought?
Which video over conference Wi-Fi? Who knew what happened? Who knew? I can see you. That's you.
Okay, so can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Awesome. I think people are getting kicked out at the moment for some reason. Not sure why. So, anybody got any updates for us?
So I'll just mention briefly that progress on adding more Git provider support to Prow is coming along nicely. Got some good feedback from the the Prow SIG testing community about that. In fact, they were apparently some of them that are there at KubeCon have been talking about it. And people keep asking, like, hey, when are you going to support more than just GitHub? And so it sounds like there's a nice groundswell of community support behind this. And they had asked me about it, so I'm going to present at whenever the next SIG testing call is, I'm going to kind of present what I've been working on so far and try to get some feedback and just kind of make sure that I'm staying on people's radar and that kind of thing. So
that's awesome. That's really good.
Yeah.
Cosmin, how's so the Vault operator looks to be just about there now, right? GitOps dev mode looking. Is it close?
Yeah, almost. I guess in the installation it's almost there. It works. I figured out some issues today in the upgrade platform. I need also to make upgrade platform working with Vault, and also to move this GPG encrypted secrets to Vault, I would say. And then in the pipeline, we need to fetch secrets from Vault as well. Currently, we use Kubernetes secrets for that. But I did a lot of refactoring in the install recently. Also clean up Git, rework the entire Git stuff now, make it clear with the pipeline and normal user, how you set it up. Yeah, so it's progressing, I would say. But should be soon ready. That's.
As soon as the dev GitOps is done, we should be able to do multi-cluster pretty quickly after that, really. Doing GitOps for the dev platform install is the first step to really nice multi-cluster, I think.
And then for me, so the app stuff is also kind of waiting for Cosmin because, again, I'm trying to do the app stuff based around the GitOps for dev environments. And almost every single app you install, except really trivial ones, need a token or a password to connect to the service they're going to talk to. So I'm kind of stalled a bit, intentionally stalled a bit on that because can't make much progress. But I've got a lot of the pieces in place. So we have a working tool that will ask you questions based on a JSON schema. So for everything that's in the JSON schema, it asks it as a question, and I have I basically have all of the latest draft of the JSON schema implemented, except some really weird edge cases which I don't understand how to implement when you're asking questions. Like, there's some odd stuff around like nested schemas and things like that I didn't do, but the rest of it kind of works. So I'm going to integrate that tomorrow, and I kind of took a detour down writing an app for Slack, which is based around the Slack bot that James originally wrote, which is now working quite nicely. So it will direct message you with any pipelines, any pull requests that you create with the pipeline, and then it can also tell a chat room when a new pull request is created, and it will mention anyone you put as reviewers on GitHub to notify them that there's a new pull request created. And I'll do that initially as a room, but then we can also do that as direct messages. So it can literally just direct message any reviewers to tell them that there's a pull request waiting their review. And then I'll do some nice filtering, so you can kind of filter which repos you want on which rooms and things like that.
That sounds awesome. Is there a way to get a notification, say, when a master build fails?
Yeah, I'm going to do that. That's the last one, because I realized really to do that, we need a kind of history, because it's not really very useful just notifying the person who last committed with the master build fail. You kind of need to notify everybody who committed since it last passed, because it might be any of their fault that it failed. We don't really have that right now in Jenkins X. I mean, that's a really classic feature in Jenkins, right? Yeah. So my thought is really that it's quite easy to work that out, though, because you just look back through the pipeline activities for the last success, and then you can just query the Git provider for all of the. I mean, I'm hoping that I can then take I know we store the last commit SHA in the pipeline activity, and I'm hoping that I can then use that and maybe some utility in Go to basically just work backwards through the commit history and pull out all the usernames and put out all the names of all the people who committed since then. And then awesome. Yeah, so because I've got code now to like resolve Git users to Slack users, so it's just a case of running it all through that same code basically.
How does the code work to associate a Git user with a Slack user? Are we using the user CI?
Git Slack basically identifies people by email address. It's Slack clearly retrofitted user identity into the system, or global user identity, right? They clearly started with user identity per workspace, and then retrofitted the whole unique stuff in, because actually under the covers, you really just reference everybody by some kind of ID, like 10-digit alphanumeric thing. So whenever you mention someone, you kind of have to call a method on the Slack API to get their user ID out, but they have a thing called get user by email address. So you can always just use that, I think. So what I've done is I'm pulling the email address from Git, and then I'm checking the user CRD to see if. Oh, no, sorry, I'm pulling the username and the email address from Git provider. Then I'm checking the user CRD to see if there's an alias, see if they've got their Git username on the user CRD, and if they have, override it either with a Slack username or the email address from the user CRD, and just as a backup using the email address from the Git provider, which I think that will work for most people. But like for us, we quite will often have our personal email address as, or if you work for a company, right, you'll often have your personal email address as your GitHub user email, but then you'll have your corporate one for your private Slack or whatever. So yeah, so it's just kind of making it possible to do that.
Sounds great.
One question to the application secrets: do you want to store them in the same system vault where we store all the?
I think so, because the way it works with GitOps is when we do the install of the apps. They literally get installed in the same release as the platform and all the platform components. So to me, it seems to make most sense to just keep that consistent and install them all into the same place. But I'm also, open to ideas on that.
And do you need to share these secrets also to, like, let's say, developers? Because currently we haven't built all the user management into the Vault. It's just one admin's service account.
I don't think we need to share them, because the person who would add the app would provide the secret, and then the app would use the secret. So it's entirely service accounts. It's not like personal accounts don't need to get it. But I'm not sure if that's the question you're asking.
Yeah, I'm asking if we need to give access to the Vault to developers, for instance, if they need to fetch secrets from Vault, and then you need to separate what is like secrets for developers and what are like installation admin secrets.
So no, developers don't need to see the secrets any more than they do with the platform.
Okay, then it makes sense to put them in the same Vault, I would say.
It really, the purpose of this is more the other way, right? So it's so that the app installer or the platform installer can provide a secret that the app or the platform can use.
Okay, so it's just extending into the app.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if you can also do this today, actually. You just need to create probably an application kind of subpath and then put them per application name or for something. Yeah.
So next week I'll try and do that.
That's fantastic. How's our the impossible task wheel of the Git provider support other than their GitHub? How are you getting on? Sorry to throw you right into that.
Yeah, no, it's going well. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to that. I'm kind of so I was working on GitHub Enterprise as like the first sort of I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because that feels like bad luck, but kind of like the easiest, the first obvious thing to do is add support for GitHub Enterprise. A little bit stalled on that at the moment just because Prow assumes a version of or it uses. There's a couple places where Prow uses the GraphQL API that only works with a version of GitHub Enterprise that's higher than the current version that we have at CloudBees that we can test on. So I'm working with some of the folks here at CloudBees to get that upgraded so I can start working on that. So that's that's a little bit stalled at the moment. But then while I'm waiting for that to get sorted out, I've been working on factoring out the Git provider logic and actually moving it into a separate repo and moving each individual provider into its own package and kind of trying to clean up some of the right now everything's kind of just in one package, which is nice and convenient, and you can just develop really quickly with all this stuff. But then there's a little bit of leakage. Some of the abstractions aren't really as airtight and as nicely encapsulated as you might want, and so I'm kind of working on getting all that taken care of and making sure that that those are all nicely encapsulated and that the individual providers aren't coupled to one another, and that the provider interface isn't coupled to any of the implementations and that kind of thing. So I've been working on that, trying to get that all done, and doing some weird Git foo that I've never done before to try and pull that stuff out of the Jenkins X repo while preserving the history, which is interesting and complicated, but I'm kind of having fun wrestling with that. So
that sounds fantastic. I also want to give you a shout out. So we had some amazing feedback.
Cool.
Bitbucket server, is it James? Yeah. So somebody came up to the booth and said, yeah, they're using Jenkins X with Bitbucket server flawlessly. So a massive and a shout out, because you were doing that when you were actually as a community contribution. That was before you kind of joined part of the core team. So I thought just really wanted to give you a shout out, and well done, congrats.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So any other things anybody's got? This I see there's a few folks on the channel I've not seen before. They want to say hello or anything? Any feedback? it's fine if you don't.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Just wanted to say thank you for this really great project. I've been using it for the last month or so on some new stuff at my work, and it's really sort of let us stand up a whole new team and get sort of all the CI/CD stuff out of the way, which is something that we've been struggling with. So yeah, thank you.
That is fantastic feedback. Thank you so much. Any improvements, anything you have, please keep any feedback coming.
Sure thing.
I'd love to work with you and help always continue to improve everything that we're doing here. So that's great to hear.
Awesome. Thanks for the work. Yeah.
Right. Cheers, Andrew. Thank you. Is there anything else from anybody?
I had a
No?
quick question for Will, which is more just a kind of something I've been thinking about, which is that with the Git stuff, quite a lot of the Git providers don't have half as rich an API as GitHub. And I've been adding things to the Git API that, have been nice to have for, various apps and things like that. So, like what I was just talking about with the Slack app, right? I get the reviewers for the pull requests so I can notify them on Slack. And, yeah, sure, it's fine if you don't have that. You can still use it. It just won't mention anyone for your review. But I was wondering if you thought about how we want to handle the fact that these APIs are, some of these APIs, like say, I can't remember which one that's really bad. I think Bitbucket's pretty crappy, right? At least the client we use for it, like most of the stuff just doesn't seem to be implemented. And I'm wondering if you thought about that.
Yeah, a little bit. One thing I've thought about, not so much in connection with Bitbucket, but in connection with Garrett, for instance, which only really provides the code review features. It doesn't really have very many of the social features that GitHub has. It doesn't have, it's not an issue tracker. One thing that I was thinking about was trying to figure out, okay, so GitHub basically has conditioned us to think about all of these different things as Git that aren't really Git, like code review and issue tracking and all the social things. So one thing I thought about is like, and I've been thinking about off and on, is how could we kind of like decompose all of the components of Git that make up GitHub and try to figure out, okay, this is code review, this is issue tracking, this is whatever, and whatever else those other things might be. So that we could do something like in the case of Garrett, you could have Garrett be your code review system, but then you could use it with an issue tracker, Jira or something else. And that essentially it would be to the other components in Jenkins X, it would be relatively transparent. You would still do things like update issues and create pull requests or change sets or whatever they're called in the particular Git provider, but they could be delegated to different systems and have that be kind of decoupled and those different components be pluggable rather than just assuming that it's all one big monolithic thing like GitHub. So I don't know if that gets us to what you're talking about, Pete, but I think that at least allows us to start reasoning in that direction where we can think about, okay, how could we fill in some of these gaps in some of these providers? So
yeah, no, that's exactly what I was kind of thinking, right? Because just supporting the Git provider like Garrett's a great example.
Mm-hmm. You
actually wouldn't. I mean, yeah, we could support Garrett. We do support Garrett, but like 98% of stuff won't work. So,
right.
I guess the other kind of more meta question was, well, is it worth it? And do we actually kind of need a different approach? So,
I think as well, we're currently using the ability to sync the pipeline status to commits and pull requests. We use that quite heavily for promotion. And maybe we should default to using just pipeline activities instead of the Git provider. Because, I mean, a lot of Git providers, you can Git clone and run a pipeline, but recording CI statuses on a Git provider is a fairly GitHub-ish thing. I mean, Bitbucket kind of does it, and GitHub has a bit of that, but all the cloud hosting Git providers, for example, are super simple. I mean, they rarely even have pull requests, never mind all the other features. So I think having a generic implementation of lots of the bits of GitHub that we can reuse on different Git providers would be really useful.
So interestingly, like branch protection, which is kind of related to commit status, that is actually, I did look, and that is actually a really common feature. I think almost everybody has some kind of branch protection. So yeah, okay, yeah, no, that's good. I'm glad we're thinking about it because it was something that was vaguely concerning me.
Yeah.
Awesome. So probably going to try and wrap it up, but I just wanted to maybe finish off with it's pretty much a year to the date where the first commits for Jenkins X happens. I honestly am kind of not exhausted, but blown away personally of how Jenkins X has just taken off. It's a true community project as well, and it's been anybody watching this back if they get to the end of this call. A big thank you to everybody that's been involved, and hopefully we can encourage more people to continue building up and taking Jenkins X further. This year has just blown my mind, and I suspect next year is going to be even better. So yeah, I just wanted to say finish off with a big thank you to everybody. I'm looking forward to the new year, the new effort, new features. Okay, if anybody else hasn't got anything to add,
we should maybe have a birthday party.
Yeah.
It's super loud here. Yeah, but we should maybe have the next hangout should be on the birthday party of 1 year ago. We created, and then we could maybe have a beverage together, a virtual beverage.
Sounds good.
To celebrate.
I'm all in favour.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Let's wrap it up. Thanks to everybody. Catch up soon. See you online.
Cheers.
Bye.
See you soon.
Cheers.